Welcome to the Parkinson's Support Group of Sonoma County. This month's speakers are Lisa Wee and SteF Farina. Lisa is a physical therapist who specializes in Parkinson's fitness and wellness. Since working in Parkinson's disease research at the University of California, San Francisco, Lisa has worked exclusively in Parkinson's disease for the past 7 years. In 2015, she recognized the need for community-based high-intensity exercise classes and was a Parkinson's Foundation Award recipient. Lisa is the founder of PD Connect, a nonprofit organization in the San Francisco Bay Area, offering Parkinson's disease-specific classes on donation basis. SteF Farina is a master trainer who specializes in Parkinson's and senior fitness, and is the co-founder of PD Connect. She runs an outdoor boot camp business and also coaches high school soccer. Together, SteF and Lisa are known as S&L, and they bring a variety of functional movements and education from the broad spectrum of PD-specific certifications they have obtained. We welcome you both. Thank you for coming to the Parkinson's Support Group of Sonoma County.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor and pleasure to be here with all of you. All right, I'm going to start and say welcome. Thank you again for coming. I am Lisa Wee and SteF Farina here, and we're going to talk a little bit about exercise. So we are PD Connect, and I just want to give you a little intro about what we do. We do exercise and education for people with Parkinson's. And this is some of what our exercise looks like.
Every single day, I'm gonna make something great. That's my way. Every single day, I'm gonna make something great. That's my way.
Oops. That wasn't supposed to happen. I was supposed to continue sharing. All right, here we are. Okay, please interrupt me if you see something going wrong technologically. And let me see. There we go. Okay, so my talk today is called Taking the First Big Step. Exercise is medicine. Again, I'm a physical therapist. I'm a Parkinson's wellness coach. All I do is work with Parkinson's. So I've been doing that exclusively since 2015. Let me see here. So what does PD look like? Most of you probably know this, and this is how you were diagnosed. It's because of, 4 of these cardinal signs. One is this bradykinesia, the slowness of movement. Some people may have tremor. Some people have rigidity, where it's just kind of that stiffness. And then postural instability. That is sort of this feeling of not being able to, stop yourself from falling sometimes. Most of these symptoms take years to develop, and a lot of people can live decades with this. But this is kind of what people think Parkinson's looks like, especially if you're newly diagnosed. And if people, you don't know a lot about it, and you go onto the internet and you think, oh my gosh, this is me. But this is also what Parkinson's looks like. right? So it doesn't really have to be just that, you know, rigid posture looking photo that we just had, that picture. It can be very active. And we know a lot of people who are still very active living with Parkinson's for decades. So here we go. Move it or lose it. If you are in a bad mood, go for a walk. If you're still in a bad mood, go for another walk. This is Hippocrates. So we've known about this for, you know, a couple of years now, maybe, right? Back in the day, they knew that exercise and movement was good for you. But why? Why exercise? And especially why for Parkinson's? Because exercise is medicine. When I first got started in this, I was asked to work on a research project at UCSF looking at exercise and Parkinson's. And the goal of it was to really kind of quantify or validate that, let's say, for example, X number of minutes of exercise could have been the equivalent of, you know, X number of pills for your Parkinson's. And that's what the research is aiming for now, to continue to find, you know, is there really a way to measure how good exercise is for Parkinson's? And we're going to talk about that a little bit later too, when I share some of the research. So exercise is great, but all exercise is not created equal. These are some of the certifications that I have done and SteF has done as well, that are specific to Parkinson's. It's not the same if, you know, SteF is a personal trainer and she knew a lot about exercise, but it's not the same. Working with someone who is Parkinson's specific and really works with them, not just took the course, does a lot for your long-term outcome, I think. So we're really glad that some of these certification programs are out there. We just came back from a week in the desert in Arizona, going to this power retreat where hundreds of people came to exercise, and it was intense. And we've done these before in Seattle and across the area, where, you know, people that really do some intense exercise can see real benefit even in a short amount of time, even in 1 week. Anyway, okay, so Parkinson's is a neurodegenerative disease. There's no cure. They say it will just progress. So if they say it's going to bring you down, we want to start higher and stay higher. And that's my job. That's our job at PD Connect. For those of you, if you're newly diagnosed, this is a great time to hear this lecture. If you're not newly diagnosed, this is still a great time to hear this lecture, because we could absolutely still make changes. But the goal is to start high. We want to get you as fit as possible so that one day when things potentially start going downhill for you, it's okay, because you're going to be way up here and we're going to keep you way up here. So by the time things get really bad, you're going to be, you know, 140 years old. So it's going to be okay. So the importance of the first big step. This talk, I call it the first big step because we applied for a grant from the Parkinson's Foundation. That's why you see their logo on here. And it was really about, again, to teach people that are newly diagnosed or new to Parkinson's exercise. So here's the thing. In Parkinson's, the default setting is for things to get small, right? Your handwriting gets small, your posture gets small, your voice gets small, your steps get small. Everything seems to get small. So the solution is to aim big, to think really big, and make your first step big. Because if you start small, they only get smaller. Let me give you a short little demo here. When you start walking and you're having trouble walking and you just say, okay, I'm going to walk, you kind of just walk. But if you say to yourself, nope, I'm going to take a big step and keep taking big steps, you're training your brain to take big steps. And that's what we are experts at, helping you to achieve big steps and to maintain those steps. Okay, why you're here, and you're here for this talk, and maybe you have this question, why are my steps getting smaller? And it's basically for these 3 reasons, which I will go over. The first one is learned non-use. So this actually, I call it the lost and the found, and it comes out of the University of Alabama, Birmingham, and there's a doctor there, a neurologist who works mostly with people who have had strokes. So I don't know if you've known anyone that has had a stroke, but they, become paralyzed sometimes on one side. So they'll say, okay, Mr. So-and-so had a stroke. Let's let them rest in the hospital while the inflammation in their brain settles down. And in the meantime, though, that person is just lying there paralyzed. And so what they do is they do this thing called constraint-induced therapy. After a certain amount of time, they're in bed and they say, okay, it's time to start therapy. Well, they're paralyzed. They can't move their arm. So what do? They put the other arm into a cast. And now they say, okay, go ahead, Mr. So-and-so, feed yourself. And they're like, what are you talking about? My one arm is in a cast and my other arm is paralyzed. What happened during that time when they were just lying there is that their brain forgot that they had an entire side. They didn't use that side because it was paralyzed. So their brain just said, it doesn't need that anymore. They learned not to use that side. So in this picture here with the two brains on the left, you'll see there's just this tiny little black dot. That means the activity on that side of the brain was very little. But once they put the cast on them and they said, okay, feed yourself, and they just started to kind of wiggle their fingers and try to lift their arm, slowly but slowly, those pathways and those neurons started to wake up again. And you'll see in that second picture that all of a sudden there is brain activity again. So learned non-use is what happens when you let the brain just sort of forget about it. This happens in Parkinson's as well, because say, for example, you are really used to small steps and posture like this. You are basically telling yourself, I don't need to take big steps and I don't need to stand up tall. And over time, if you do not correct that, then the brain thinks, they don't need to. And if I say, okay, let's put you up against the wall and stand up tall, it's probably pretty hard. It may take some real effort to kind of get the input into the brain to say, oh, that's where my head could be. I thought I was standing up straight the whole time. This felt pretty normal to me. No, you can do a lot more. Another example of this learned non-use, though, is I love this story. I had a person coming to class who was really very athletic and played, basketball and tennis and all this stuff, and could do all these high intensity drills in our class, our exercise class. And then one day they said, Lisa, I almost fell this morning. I was putting on my pants, and I normally put my pants on while I'm standing up. But, I have Parkinson's, so I better sit down when I put my pants on. What are they telling themselves? They're basically telling themselves, I don't need that skill of standing up and putting on my pants anymore. I have Parkinson's. I better sit down. You're learning how not to stand up, to put your pants on standing up. So that's a real issue that comes up a lot. And objectively, this person had perfect balance. They were, again, like I said, playing tennis and basketball and doing all these different things. So the objective evidence was that they had great balance. So I'm going to come back to this topic. All right, next one, perception versus capacity. So you'll see here, they did this survey and they asked this question, how do you feel right now? If you see where the little blue dot is, they're kind of not too happy. They're not feeling great. However, once they had this person exercise and do the physical work that they were asking them to achieve, their capacity to do it was much higher than what they felt and they perceived that they could do. And so that happens a lot as well. When we are in class and we say, okay, everyone, stand in a really wide stance. And so they go like this. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, stand in a wide stance. Oh, I am. No, how about this? Right? Can you still see me? This is wide. This is the capacity. But the perception to a lot of people with Parkinson's is, wow, this is as high, as wide as I can go. You know, another area where this happens is voice. So some people say, you know, they speak like this and they think that they're speaking really loudly. Wow, you guys can't hear me? It feels to me like I'm really yelling, right? So the perception is that they're speaking loudly, but actually they're not. All right, we talked about this. Here's another one, walking at home. You may think that you're at home and you're walking really, why is it that when you're at home walking, you have a really hard time and you walk like this? But then if you go to the neurologist and you go to the doctor's office and they say, okay, go ahead, please walk down the hallway, you do this. Why is that? You guys ever done that? Has anybody ever done that? Anyway, that is, again, this perception versus capacity. And there's all kinds of stuff that we will go into about that. Okay, another reason why your steps are getting smaller, bad habitual movement. I just demonstrated many, many times how people tend to walk when they're not thinking about it and they're just kind of in this automatic motion. And we know that, you know, the parts of Parkinson's that are most affected in the brain are this kind of mid-inner brain part where it's the automatic center. So things like walking and eating and dressing and getting in and out of bed and getting up and down off the floor, those are all automatic. And that's where the problems can happen in Parkinson's. But there are ways around this. So this is John Pepper. He is a gentleman with Parkinson's. He's in South Africa. He wrote a book called, I think it's just called Reverse Parkinson's, but he came up with this thing called conscious walking. And basically what he does when he walks is he just thinks about it. Instead of that, relying on that automatic center of the brain, the part that isn't working very well in Parkinson's, he makes everything go to the front of the brain or other parts of the brain that are still working and working well. And you can do that with anything. So what he does when he walks is he says, okay, I'm going to take a big step. I'm going to land on my heel. I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to weight shift onto the outside of my foot. I'm going to pull my leg up. I'm going to lift my knee up. I'm going to weight shift onto my toes. I'm going to push off onto my toes. And of course, that's a lot to think about, but he absolutely thinks and thinks and thinks and concentrates on big step and heel, toe. And over time, he gets really good at it and he walks really fast. And he's now into, I don't know, he may be into his 90s by now, but he basically was able to, you know, lower his medications and get his Parkinson's under control by doing this very vigorous walking that he does. So he's getting a lot of aerobic exercise, which we will talk about, and he's getting a lot of this skilled thinking exercise, skilled movement by walking. He's not letting walking be automatic. He's making it a skilled movement. And that's really important. For those of you that may have known, he actually came to Marin County a few years ago and we had an auditorium of like 300 people. And he did this demonstration with someone who was in a wheelchair. And he got the guy, he said, okay, hang on to me, come on, let's stand up. So the guy gets out of his wheelchair and he says, okay, now I want you to swing your arms. So he goes like this. Again, perception. The gentleman thought he could only swing his arms like this. So he said, no, come on, swing your arms. So then he goes like this and he raises his arm, capacity. And then he says, okay, now kick out your legs. So he kicks out his leg. Then go up and down on your toes and onto your heels. It's like, okay, I can do that. And then he turns to the man and he says, you know what? You have just done all the movements that you need to walk. So let's walk. So he grabs the person by the arm and he says, let's walk. And the two of them walk down the middle of this auditorium. And everyone is just astounded. And at some point he stops. And he thought, oh, wait, I can't walk anymore. What happened? He had forgotten that he had legs because he'd been in a wheelchair for so long that learned non-use was starting to kick in. The connection between his brain and his legs was just like little threads. So John said to him, okay, let's do it again. Stand up on your toes, back on your heels, swing your arms, kick your legs, and let's walk again. So he made this reconnection with his body and his legs, and they walked again. He turns around, he's crying, his whole family is crying, but that just goes to show, I mean, this was a real demonstration in front of 300 people. It absolutely goes to show that there's so much that can be done with movement and exercise in Parkinson's. Learning to walk in. So I use this principle with one of my clients. So you'll see here, kind of small walks, no arm swing, small steps. I mean, now we're taking bigger steps, a little bit more arm swing. And by the way, this is a person who was really good at golf and had loved playing golf all their life and had given up playing golf because they couldn't walk. In fact, they couldn't walk a block without dragging their leg. So we worked on it. We worked on this conscious walking over and over, week after week, and over, after a couple of months, they were able to get back to walking a mile and playing golf. So here's what happens.
And now you can't even do the funky walk anymore. Go ahead. See what happens. Can't do the funky walk anymore.
Do you see the difference? I mean, this was a person who, like I said, could not walk a block without dragging their leg, and with conscious walking and thinking and some, guidance, they were able to really improve their walk. And that was several years ago now. And I know that they're still out there playing golf. Here's another example. Okay, so that's the small steps.
And now you can't even do the funky walk anymore.
Here's another example, somebody that came into class holding on to their spouse and with a cane. And this was within the first couple of, so small steps, no arm swing, very stiff posture. So we did some pole walking to try to encourage more arm work, try to lengthen that stride. And then this happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? And so all of this happens just within a couple of weeks of coming to class and doing some Parkinson's specific exercise. Now, this I find really incredible. As a physical therapist, this is really hard. I don't know how many of you can do box jumps, but this is the same person who, again, came in with a cane and holding on to their spouse. And now a couple weeks later, they're jumping. Let's see it again. I just think it's neat. Okay. Exercise is medicine. Here, let's talk about some of the research. And this is very recent research. It's really hard to do research on exercise because it's very expensive and no one wants to spend billions of dollars or millions of dollars on exercise that is free, right? Exercise is free. You don't have to pay for it. So nobody really wants to do the research. However, this study talks about long-term effect of regular physical activity and exercise habits in patients with early Parkinson's disease. So the study basically said that when people were early in their diagnosis in the first couple of years, and they looked at how much they still moved and did physical activity and how much they exercised, and what they showed was that 5 years later, these people still had better gait, better postural instability, and better balance than those that weren't still staying physically active. That's a long time, 5 years. Sometimes I've heard people tell me, my doctor says I've got 5 good years. No, this study from February 2022 says, hey, if you can just keep moving, you can maintain your gait and your balance just from moving. How much did they do? Well, on average, these people were doing about 240 minutes of exercise per week. So that turns out to be about 35 minutes a day. Is that right? I have to do my math again. Anyway, 240 minutes. All right, what else? This one looks at aerobic exercise. We talk a lot about exercise, and it's a really broad term. And this particular one talked about physical activity and exercise, two different things. Physical activity means just doing stuff that you've always been doing: gardening, cleaning, shopping, building, maybe you run errands, maybe you walk the dog. Those are considered physical activity. Exercise could be something like taking a brisk walk, going to an exercise class, doing yoga or boxing, or whatever it is that you enjoy doing. So as long as you're still moving in some format, it shows that it does maintain your movement and your balance and all that. So this one talks about aerobic exercise. What we know is that aerobic exercise alters the brain. This is a randomized controlled trial, which means it's one of the highest standards for Parkinson's or for research. And what they showed was they had a group that was either doing like high intensity aerobic exercise using a stationary bike or a trainer versus someone that was just doing stretching exercises. All right. So the person that was doing aerobic exercise and kind of getting out of breath and maybe getting a little sweaty, they did MRIs on these people, and the MRIs showed, whoa, they have new structures in the brain that are being formed. And that's what we want. Parkinson's is a brain disorder. The neurons are not working well. The pathways are not working well, but aerobic exercise seems to be able to connect those pathways again. And part of that learned non-use is the brain just doesn't go to those areas anymore. If you're asking it to do a certain thing and you haven't done that particular task in a long time, it forgets. I have one more example to show you about that. Can you teach an old dog new tricks? Absolutely. So by practicing, focusing, and learning. So this is just an example. So the top left here, it shows a young brain. There's lots of color. Then it shows an old brain with more of this red stuff. Red just means that there's not a lot of movement and activity going on. But the old trained brain, after doing work and exercise, they now have gotten rid of a lot of those red spots and gotten more color. What else do we have here? Neuroplasticity. So basically all I've been talking about is neuroplasticity. Use it or lose it. I hope that many of you have already heard of this term before because it is so important. This is what Parkinson's exercise and training is all about. It is about the ability of the brain to form and reorganize synaptic connections, especially in response to learning or experience or following injury. The human brain can prune or grow synaptic connections throughout adulthood. When you wake up in the morning and you feel like, I'm so weak, I can't get out of bed, I must be progressing, my Parkinson's must be getting worse, that's not because your muscles are weak, it's because the connection from your brain to your legs isn't going fast enough, because there aren't as many pathways for that message to get sent. And that's where exercise helps, because the exercise will help strengthen those pathways and make them stronger and thicker and more efficient. And neuroplasticity can lead to good movement or bad movement. Like I said, what you practice, or here, let me just say it, what you practice is what you get really good at. So if you practice this all the time, you get really good at this. But if you practice this, you get really good at this. One other thing that I really, like to talk about too is this idea of neuroplasticity and not, why are my steps getting smaller? Why are my arm movements getting smaller? If you're doing something where you're just kind of raising your arms and you're doing some kind of a class where your arms are not fully extending, you're telling your brain, I never need to extend my elbow right here. I never need to. And in fact, if I try to pull it out, sometimes it's a little rigid even. Or if you think about it, it's like, how do I do it? It forgot. But why do we need that skill? Well, what about when you put your coat on and you need to get your arm through the cuff? If you're so used to only doing your exercises and never straightening out those elbows, how can you put your coat on? So exercise and neuroplasticity, we just talked about it. When we exercise, we bring blood flow. There's all kinds of neurotropic factors. There's this thing called miracle grow for the brain. It's called BDNF. We know that that is made during exercise. We also know that a lot of the connections get better, that all kinds of different things. And it's good for your mood, and it's good for your cognition too. The same areas that are working for the motor control are also areas that work on executive function, making decisions, working on driving skills or planning skills, memory, all those different things. How am I doing on time anyway? Anyways, okay, so the way you move affects different parts of your brain. This is a really easy slide to look at and understand. If we start from the bottom, this person's just running on the treadmill. So when we do that, when you're just biking or running on the treadmill, you're getting your heart rate up, or maybe you're just on a stationary bike, you're not thinking about it, but your heart rate is up, you're sweating. That is good for slowing the progression of the disease. See how in the brain section there, it's only that bottom central part that has the arrows. So a lot of stuff is happening in that part of your brain when you're running or biking, but you're not thinking about it. That slows down the progression of the disease. However, if you go into something more skilled, like the tennis or the dancing, or even the yoga or the Tai Chi, you'll see that it uses more parts of your brain. In fact, it uses those frontal lobes and those cortical areas of your brain. This helps with symptoms as well. And this helps with all those other things, the cognition and the skilled work that we were talking about. So it's important to do a little of everything. You don't just want to be the person that, does spin class and nothing else, because what happens to your posture? What happens to your dual tasking? What happens to your, problem solving? That kind of stuff doesn't happen if you're just going to spin class or something like that. Or vice versa. If you're only doing yoga or stretching, you're not getting the aerobic benefit of building the good BDNF and the neurotropic factors that can slow down the progression of the disease. And here's a big thing. Those who exercise moderate to vigorously showed a slower disease progression. This is big news, guys. It's 2022. And for them to come out to say that it's actually slowing the disease progression. Most of you, or maybe all of you, already have Parkinson's. So what do you do now? You slow the progression, and moderate to vigorous exercise does that. What does moderate to vigorous exercise mean? It means to work at a certain intensity. A lot of times we use heart rate monitors. I forgot to pull my heart rate. We use this kit called Heart Zones from our friend who created this whole Heart Zones, and using zones to track your heart rate. They're out of Sacramento. It's called Heart Zones. Anyways, and so 60 to 80% of your max heart rate is where you want to be. If you don't have a heart rate monitor, you want to at least be somewhat out of breath, somewhat a little sweaty, and really feeling like you're exercising and working hard. Strengthening is also important. It improves your brain. This is one of my favorite slides as a physical therapist. Oh, I'm sorry. What color TheraBand did you suggest? If you've ever gone to physical therapy and they give you those little, colorful bands, like, oh, that's so hard. No, the body's capacity to do difficult things is a lot higher than you think. That's what this slide is about. Strength training is really important too. Strength is about brain work. Strength, and especially if you add a little bit of what we call instability, like standing on a bosu. Where's my bosu? Anyway, standing on a pillow, standing on a mat, any kind of instability, it makes the brain work harder. So they've done these studies where they looked at, okay, these people are just doing strength training, and then we're also going to have them just stand on a little bit of instability. Like, for example, I have this little cushion. What if I were to just put this cushion on the floor and stand on it while I do my bicep curls? That adds that little bit of instability, and that's good for cognitive load. What does that mean? When you're doing your strength training, it means more cognitive load. More cognitive load means your brain is working more, and it means that you've got better brain circuitry and better balance, which means better quality of life. Here's the thing. People think that balance is this. People think that balance is standing in a nice, ta-da, look, I'm balanced. No, this is not balance. This is weight distribution. This is balance, right? Standing on one leg is balance. But balance is really about cognition. Let me say it again. Balance is about cognition. We have people that can stand on one leg for 1 minute, but they make bad decisions, so they fall. They're not paying attention, they're not having awareness, so they fall. Versus we have people that have horrible balance, but they make good decisions, so they don't fall. So think about that. And in fact, we just came back, SteF and I were just coming back from Arizona, and we did this really big hike, super steep and technical. That's not about anything except brain. It was so cognitively challenging to be scrambling on rocks. So people with Parkinson's actually are less likely to fall on a steep trail with all kinds of roots and things than walking down the sidewalk. Why is that? Because when you're walking down the sidewalk, you're in that automatic zone. You're not thinking. But when you're on the trail, you're looking at rocks and roots and things to make sure you don't fall. So you don't, because you're using that different part of your brain. Okay, a little intensity goes a long way. We did this thing called so she's balancing, and then she's doing this intensity on the tandem bike.
Here goes Mia balancing after her bike. After the bike, look at this. Look at this. Wow. Wow. Wow.
So there you go. A little intensity goes a long way. Her balance improved just after like a minute of going hard. How you exercise is important. You need to pay attention. You really need to pay attention. It's got to be challenging. It's got to be goal-oriented. Why are you doing this? What are you trying to achieve? Task specific. If you want to be able to play with your grandkids, that means getting up and down off the floor. It doesn't mean cycling. It's got to be diverse. And of course, it has to be fun. That's what we do in class. We have a lot of fun. Okay, practical tips. If you haven't already, please start your exercise program with a Parkinson-specific physical therapist. Let them give you a baseline of where you're at so that you know where you're at, and so that you have some goals that you can try to aim for and get reassessed later on. Our program, the first big step that we got from the Parkinson's Foundation, is a little bit of that. For those of you that would like to join us, we do offer that a couple of times a year, where you can go and have like a baseline assessment, and then we retest you in a while. And it's free. Find a movement disorder specialist as your physician if you can. It makes a big difference. If you were diagnosed by your primary care or by a neurologist who also sees stroke, MS, Huntington's, Lou Gehrig's, see if you can find a movement disorder specialist. Aim for exercising at least 4 days a week. 7 days is better. There are exercise research studies out there that show the people that are doing best are exercising 7 days a week. 7 days a week is better than 6. 6 is better than 5. And if you're not exercising at least 3 days a week, it doesn't even count. It does not count if you're only exercising 2 days a week. Aim for higher intensity. So I purposely crossed this out because it used to be that the recommendation was 150 minutes of higher intensity exercise per week. But that number, like I said, because of that research study, is now being bumped up to 240 minutes. And in fact, when we talk to experts like Dr. Ray Dorsey, who wrote the book about, ending Parkinson's disease, and somebody asked, hey, now that I already have Parkinson's, what do I do now? He says, listen, and they were like, oh, should I get this treatment or that treatment? And he said, listen, I would try to keep your neurons, as many neurons that you have, as healthy as possible. And that means aiming for 2 to 3 hours of exercise per day. Yeah. We have that recording. If anybody wants that recording, please give us an email and we'll send it to you. So 240 minutes a week or 35 minutes a day. Intensity, it means it's hard to have a conversation. Get a heart rate monitor. Aim for strength training at least 2 times a week. That's the part that's good for the brain. You need that cognitive exercise as well. Listen to faster music to make your intensity faster. If you're taking a little stroll, see if you can bump up the pace of that stroll. We like to also follow this gentleman named John Argue. He's kind of the godfather of Parkinson's movement. He wrote the book, The Art of Movement, Parkinson's disease, and he taught us to be mindful when we do anything, to be graceful, and to complete every movement. This is also really important. Let me just demonstrate one thing here about completion. When people try to get up from a chair, sometimes they can't get up, and they kind of get up and then they sort of fall over maybe, or they don't really stand up. Why does that happen? Because they're not completing the movement. When we teach people to stand, we say, okay, let's be mindful. Let's get our wide base of support. Let's lean forward and lift up our butt, and then we stand up. Now, we don't stand up here before we start walking. No, we stand up and we completely stand up before we walk. That makes a huge difference in quality of life and not falling. So keep that in mind. The next thing is true too. The opposite is true. If you're going to sit down, how many people have come to sit down and they barely miss the edge of the couch, right? You're not completing the motion. Walk all the way to the chair. Turn around completely and then sit down safely. That's completion. Train yourself to do completion with every movement. Okay, try dual tasking, walking and doing different tasks. That means walking and chewing gum at the same time. Keep practicing a new skill, even as it gets harder. That was that example of putting your pants on standing up. Don't give up when things get challenging. Give yourself more time. Be safe. If that was a challenge to stand up, don't give in to the learned non-use, but stand in a corner, stand close to the bed, have things surrounding you so that you're safe, but you're not losing that skill. Be in nature. Wow. Give yourself some natural dopamine. I'm sure many of you live in areas where you have not nature around you. Lucky. And of course, make it fun, make it social, and make it consistent. And always, always, always safety first. Take home message. Our greatest challenge is immobility. Just keep moving, please, everyone. Moderate to vigorous intensity exercise improves the circuitry and the brain. This is medicine. Don't give in to the learned non-use, right? Recalibrate with the wall to see if you're standing up straight. If you're not sure if you're standing up straight to the best of your ability, put yourself up against that wall to really see. PD specific exercise requires repetition, intensity, and challenge. And neuroplasticity can happen at any age and at any stage. Where do you go from here? Attend your local Parkinson's support groups and classes. I'm sure you are all very connected to that. And thank you for being at the support group right now. We are on Zoom if you ever want to join us for any of our exercise and education. We're pdconnect with a dash.org. And now it's time to do a little exercise, I think.
So if you'd like to join us in some exercise right now, this is what we do, other than listening to Lisa talk and watch her acting through most of
I
life.
can act a lot.
The Academy Award goes to Lisa. So anyone want to join us in exercise, you may do that. I'm going to remain seated, and Lisa will do all the standing stuff with us.
And you know what? I'm going to put it into
What?
gallery view so I can actually see who's
We can
joining us.
see
We
you.
see
That's
you.
right. Excellent. So we are going to continue on with what we call a little joint mobility. So let's go ahead, and if you're seated, you can sit nice and tall. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Yes. Okay. Seated nice and tall. Lisa standing nice and tall. And we're going to take our neck. We're going to do some neck mobility here. So you're going to look down towards your tummy and then back up towards the ceiling. Right back down. We're going slowly here and gently. I've got a nice wide stance in my chair. Good. From the bottom to the top.
Yeah. Use your eyes too.
Yes.
Make sure you actually use your eyes. So don't just turn your head, but look down at your feet and then use your eyes to look at the spider webs on our ceiling.
And now we're going to look to one side, back to the center, and then to the other side.
One side
To the other
to
side.
the other
Make
side.
sure you're using your eyes. So
Using your
watch
eyes.
where you're going and see each time you might feel a little bit more mobility, but
Can you
don't
see?
go too,
Yeah, and see if
don't
you
go
can
too crazy.
see something farther behind you. Use your
Yeah.
eyes to find something farther behind you.
I'm seeing a lot of orange over here.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now we're going to take your head and we're going to go ear to shoulder, side to side, ear to shoulder, side to side, not shoulder to ear. There we go.
Isn't
Nice.
that cute? Look, they're all going ding dong, ding dong. They're all in unison here.
That's cute. It is cute. Yes. Good. Now, one of my favorites, we're going to get those dancing shoulders going. So we're alternating which shoulder comes back. And this is one of my favorite dance moves.
Yeah.
It's actually one of my only dance moves, but doesn't it make you feel good?
This is one of your dad's dance moves.
Yes,
isn't
that's
it?
true. Yes. And as I get older, I realize I'm dancing more and more like my father, which is not good. Excellent. Now let's go ahead. Again, I'm going to take a nice wide stance, and Lisa's going to take an even wider stance,
Remember
wider
that,
than you think.
Wider than you think.
That's right. Perception versus capacity. And our hands are together, and we're going to open up, sticking your chest out, and then bring those hands back to the center again. Good. So you're going to open up. Excellent. Really squeeze those shoulder blades back together and keep your eyes focused up and your chin up. Good. Excellent. Come back together. Nice. Excellent. All the way back. And I've got this wall back behind me. Sometimes I like to use it as a target. So I know both of my hands are touching that wall. So then I know I'm coming to completion, like Lisa talked about earlier. Good. Excellent. All right. Next one, we're going to go elbows up. They're coming up to shoulder height. So you see how my elbow is in line with my shoulder here. Lisa's going to get a little closer, and then your palms are going to come down. This is a tough one for any of us that have shoulder impingement. See how,
or frozen shoulder.
Right, frozen shoulder. So you can do one at a time.
Wow, some are really good at this.
Yes.
They could be like air traffic control people or something.
It's
Look at that.
absolutely
Are
true.
we doing one at a time now?
I'm doing one at a time now because, yeah, you were talking, so I just was going to move on with the show.
I see that.
Good. Excellent.
I
Now
like
we're going to
it.
open up, so your arms are going to come out and then come right back here.
Oh,
Good.
yeah.
How do you do? How are you feeling, Lise?
Well, I have this sprained elbow,
Yes,
so I
be
actually
careful.
can't fully bend
She's
my elbow.
working on it, or you can do one at a time. So that you can really guarantee that completion. You can look at it, look over to the side there to make sure you're coming out fully with that elbow.
Yeah. Can you try to straighten out those elbows really straight, just like what we talked about?
And then
Good.
you can shake out those arms and just enjoy. I'm gonna stand up. So I know my chair is right back behind me if I need it. I'm gonna do that big hip circles, really big hip circles, full range of motion. I'm going in one direction and then we'll switch. Good.
Remember, the key word here is big,
Big.
because the default setting in Parkinson's is
Yeah, it's too tiny. Switch directions.
maybe we should call it tiny.
Yeah, a little tiny. Yeah,
You do?
good. Full range of motion here
Turn them off.
in the opposite direction now.
That's right.
Good. Excellent. And while we're standing there with that nice wide stance, let's work through the groin here, Lisa. Let's work through the groin
Okay.
from one
I'm just
side
gonna,
to the other side. Ooh, I'm cracking over here.
there's,
One side.
background noise
to the
coming
other
on here.
side.
I'm just gonna
Yeah,
mute.
we're just gonna mute some
for a
people.
little
That's
bit.
okay. No big deals.
What it
Good.
does.
So keeping that wide stance. We're still working on that good posture.
Good posture.
Good posture. My hands are on my hips.
I love it. Look, even in the
And-
easy chair. there's-
Yeah, they got it in the easy
Yeah,
chair.
I
That's
love
right.
it.
I can still do this in my chair as well, keeping that wide stance. And I
Mhm.
could come here. And so we're working
Mhm.
on the groin and the inner thighs, right? Just to make
Right.
sure they're awake.
One of the things that's different about our class is that it's always the two of us. So one
Correct.
person is always doing the seated lower
Modified.
lower impact
Mhm.
class demonstration, and the other person is standing up
And
so
so
can do more higher intensity things.
exactly. So we're just warming up right now. And we're
We
gonna
have a few minutes here because I
we
think
only have
we
a
only
few
have like
minutes left. Yes.
5 minutes left.
Yep. So that we can give some
A couple of demonstrations of exercises that we do, and then take some questions.
Exactly. We call this the can we say
The
it?
Price is Right.
The Price is Right.
You've won
No copyright attorneys here.
a new washer and dryer set.
Exactly. And now let's get those shoulders back one more time. One more thing here as we warm up, and then we're gonna do some power moves.
Yeah.
We're gonna do some power moves. I'm sure most of you are already familiar with power, but there's some, Lisa talked about Parkinson's specific exercise.
Exactly.
We focus on posture, weight shifting, rotation, and transition.
All
Those are
right.
all really important. So she's going to do the standing. I'm going to do the seated.
Mhm.
Wide stance for these
Wide
first
stance.
three.
Look at
Yep.
this. Wide
Wide
stance.
And what we're going to do for this first one is focus your eyes up where the ceiling and the wall meet, up towards the ceiling and the
Mhm.
wall meet. Yep. So when you do this, you can watch us first to start. You're going to get ready here,
You're
and then you're
gonna
going to
reach forward
and then power
and
up.
power up.
Squeeze those shoulder blades back together. Reach forward and up.
power
Let's do
up.
8 count with us. Here we go.
Power
Power 3. Power 4. Focus those eyes up. Power 5.
We're working on your
Squeeze
posture.
those
Power
shoulders. Good.
6.
Excellent. And
Power
power 7. One more.
And from the side, it looks like
Power
this.
8. Excellent. Good posture, Lisa.
Oh, thank you.
Next one is about weight shifting. So we're going to shift from one side to the other side, right? So what we're going to do is weight shift to this way. We're going to do 8 of these again. Look at both of our hands are active. Even in my chair, I've got this leg straight.
I feel like I should be on Broadway.
You could be on Broadway.
Okay.
All right. So this hand, we're looking up at this hand.
Yep.
So this is 1. We're going to power rock to the other side. This is 2. Look up at this
2.
hand here. Both hands active. Power 3.
Now,
Use
if I
your
want to
voice.
challenge myself, I can lift that other leg.
That's right.
Power 4. But look at all the weight is really on one leg as we shift.
Power
5.
5. Good.
We're rocking and
Power
reaching
6. Power 7.
and reach.
And power 8. Excellent. Next one we have is all about rotation. So we're twisting, the power twist, wide stance. I'm going to keep my arms down low because of shoulders. She's going to keep them at a T. I'm at an A, she's at a T. So we're going to come here, clapping. That's the cue. Clap
Notice
those hands.
how if I'm standing, my back foot here is pivoting.
Right. And then open,
and then
twist, and open.
Open.
Still keeping a wide stance.
twist.
3,
Look at your hands.
open.
Make that nice clap.
4,
Uh-huh.
open. 5, open.
6. Good job, everyone. Stand up tall. Give us your best posture.
7,
7.
open.
Open. Remember the open part.
8,
8.
and open. Last power move we have, feet together. This is the power step, not to be confused with me. I am the power step. Okay, so feet together. We're going to step, watch where you're
Step.
going, and then come back to the center.
Together.
Step. Together.
Together.
That's 2.
Step.
3. Together.
Pick up those
4.
feet. Notice
Sig-
how we pick up the foot on the way out and on the way back.
Together. You've got to step over
Step
something that's important.
like a tiny dog.
7.
Or
Together.
a tiny kitten.
And 8
Step
together.
together.
Nobody wants to step on a tiny dog or a tiny kitten. Okay, so let's do some modified jacks, Lise.
I don't know if we
Do we
have time.
Oh man,
Let's
Yep.
just regroup
let's
here
regroup here. Let's check it out.
and see.
Do we have more time for like one more minute of
Well-
exercise? No, I guess maybe we should take some
Well,
questions
we can
here.
ask
Where's
the
our?
organizer.
Yeah.
Yes, you have time. Yes.
Oh, we have time. Okay,
All
good.
right, let's do
Excellent.
it.
All right, we won't make it too crazy. I mean, we just got you warmed up.
Free
So
dance? Is
yeah,
that what we're doing? now?
no, that's
No?
always that's coming. We did
Okay.
have a song planned, but we can't play it because of copyright
Yeah.
issues. So that said, we're gonna do some modified jumping jack. So I'm gonna
Okay.
make my feet go. We did that earlier movement that we did when we were warming up here. So
Right.
now we're stepping.
So she's modifying. I'm
That's
gonna
right.
do kind of a higher modified.
Yep,
And for those of you, yeah, we got one
That's
person
right.
who's actually doing it.
that's right.
We can do this.
You
You
got
can
it.
do this, or
Or you
it's
can come back.
totally okay to
To come
step.
back. That's right. And stop. Excellent. The next exercise we have is the Heisman. Sit
Heisman.
elbow opposite knee.
Whew,
We like our elbow to meet our knee.
whew.
Have you two met before?
I don't
And
know.
one
Do you
side
guys know
to
football?
the other side. Okay, so look at this. We're keeping our hands open. And for those of us that need to sit in the chair to do this, this is okay. We feel this in our core even more as you're seated. Get that knee up if you can.
Yeah.
Good.
So we're working your balance here. Cross body movement is also really good for your brain. Anytime you do cross body, it's so good for your brain.
That's right. Okay, it's time for some speed bags. So
Oh, yeah.
we like to get our
Mhm.
arms going. So you can start with your hands open like this and go get those both forearms around each other, not
Yeah,
just one
not
arm
just
going around.
fingertips.
Nope.
No, make sure that the whole forearm is crossing
The
here.
whole forearm and nothing but the
Mhm.
forearm. All right, good. Excellent.
The whole forearm and nothing
Nothing but the forearm. Well, actually, it's your hands and your forearms and everything. What are you sighing at me for? Okay. Anyway,
Too
keep
many-
going. All right. You're almost there. Almost there. And stop. Excellent. You can do any of these in a chair. And that's
Yes.
the beauty of all
And
these
you can
exercises.
also do these things in a chair and still get your heart rate up.
It's time to squat.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna stand up out of my chair and then sit right back down. I know where my chair is. And for those of us who have difficulty getting out of the chair, it's really important to work on that weight
Yeah.
shifting forward
Yes.
and back, because this is what helps us get up out of our chair.
You know how many
Wide
times people
stance.
should be getting out of a chair?
A lot. Every day, you mean, like how many times a day?
That's it. That's complete. The other.
Yeah,
that's
that's
Yeah,
it.
nice.
complete.
Complete. Who said that?
Who
A
said that's
plus.
complete?
We'll
We
send
love
you
it.
that
All
today in
right,
the mail
let's do
tomorrow.
one more round here, Lise. Here we go.
Okay, what are we doing?
Modified. We're gonna go all the way back around now.
Ah!
Now we're getting a little bit faster
Oh my
if you
goodness, we're
can.
doing it again.
I'm still modifying the jumping jacks, but I'm just making my feet jump this
My
time.
glasses are falling
Oh
off.
my
Yeah.
goodness.
That's
do
it. That's
What
it.
you can. Do
And
what you
that's
can.
something that I've noticed, that when you do these exercises, you need to do them complete.
Yes, I love it. Thank you, whoever's
Yes.
saying that. So you can slow it down, but make it complete. So look at,
That's right.
we touch the top and we touch the bottom.
That's right. Heisman's
Heisman.
happening right
Touch.
now. We can go a
Touch.
little bit faster,
Touch,
but I'm
Touch.
still seated.
touch.
This
My heart
music
rate
can't
is-
stop.
I'm not sure what he said. What did he say?
Not sure.
Okay. So we're getting that elbow to
We will
touch that
take
knee
questions and comments
in just a
a
moment.
minute and a half.
Yes. You could also just touch your opposite knee. Our body and our brain loves cross body
Yes.
movement. Talk about cognitive training right here. Okay, good.
Uh,
Opposites, opposites. I'm modifying with you. You're almost done, Lisa.
Speed
You're almost
bags.
done. Speed bags. This time let's go in the
Let's go
opposite
backwards. Yeah, let's go the
direction.
opposite direction.
Opposite direction.
Watch your nose.
Watch your
Watch your
nose.
teeth. Watch your curlers.
Your
No?
curlers. I don't
I
see
don't
anyone
know.
wearing curlers.
No.
My mom always says watch your mouth, but that's just because, you know.
Make sure you're overlapping. Make sure those arms are actually
Good.
overlapping.
Keep going. You're almost there. You're
Remember, not just the hands part. Look at it. If you're not sure,
slow it down.
look at it, but
Look at
don't knock yourself in the eye.
Yeah, that's
Watch your-
also true.
Watch
Yeah, keep your chin
eyes.
up, your head up. Good. You guys are all doing great. You're moving.
Keep
And
your
stop.
chin.
Last thing. Here we go. Squats.
What squats? Oh,
30
those squats.
seconds. Okay, I'm in my chair.
30 squats.
I'm gonna come forward
You know,
and back.
It would be like the hottest day of the year that
It
we're
would
doing
be.
this demonstration in a home with no air conditioning.
That's also true.
Hopefully, most of you have air
Did I
conditioning.
hear sushi?
Oh, goodness.
All the way up.
All the
look
way.
at that.
I'm gonna get there now. Here we
Completion.
go. We're almost there.
Hips
10
come all the way
seconds
forward.
left.
You
All the
got
way
it.
up.
You got it.
Good.
What are we doing here?
We're almost done.
We're
Lise.
almost done.
Yep. If you need to
3,
lift your feet to get up
2,
out of that chair
One.
and stop.
Beep.
You did it.
There you go. You've just participated in some high intensity
We
exercise.
didn't,
Or
make it
moderate
too-
intensity.
Yeah, I'd say moderate intensity.
Moderate.
But for those of us who do seated exercise, my heart rate is up.
Thanks again for coming and for inspiring us and showing us some good ways to move through our bodies. That was a great experience. I'm glad that it was experiential as well. So
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
so
us.
much.
we really appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Absolutely.